Hello everyone, welcome to The Distracted Gardener. This is Charlie, the Distracted Gardener. Today's episode is filmed the day after a large earthquake struck the Noto Peninsula in Ishikawa Prefecture, Japan, about 120 miles north east of here, I suppose. And people have lost their homes and their lives, and it's going to take time and effort and a lot of help from probably a lot of people to get people in that area back on their feet. So in the coming days, I'm going to be sharing information on how you can help both here on the podcast and over on various social media channels. So if you are interested in being involved in that cause, please be sure to keep your eyes over there. Around 10 years ago, I moved to Japan. That choice has led to everything I have now, from my job to my wife, and it's not something that I regret often. Sometimes I miss something back home or something like that, and I think, oh, if only I was there, that kind of thing. And well, that's because moving to a different country, and basically for everything, I suppose, requires a bit of sacrifice. And I think the biggest sacrifice, without even having to think about it, is how much time I get to spend with my friends and family, or how much time I don't get to spend with my friends and family is a better way to put it, I suppose. In a good year, I'll see my family twice per year, though it's much more common to see them once every 2 years, with me going back to the States or them coming back over to Japan, as the case may be. Modern technology makes it much easier to be a part of each other's lives, but to say a FaceTime or two every few weeks is enough would be a lie. The good thing is that gardening, I found, offers a way to both think of people back home and also to feel closer to them. When I was a kid, both of my grandmothers gardened. My mother's mother always had it was very, very beautiful. It was a small heart-shaped garden in her front yard. I don't remember much about it other than I avoided it under the pain of death when she employed me to mow her lawn. I don't remember how much I got paid. I think it was like $20. She paid really well. But anyway, I don't really remember her ever growing anything edible, but I do remember she had a variety of different marigolds and so many different kinds of flowers. And there was a stone bird bath in the center of the garden. There were always different kinds of birds there, and I used to love watching them dive into the water and sort of shake it off and puff up. I always loved that. Now I'm remembering as I'm talking about this. I think she had her garden featured in like Better Homes and Gardens or something like that. Which, if you don't know, maybe it's only an American publication, but it's a magazine featuring, well, homes and gardens. At any rate, I spent a lot of time with her as a kid because both my folks were working and my mom was going to school when I was a little kid. And so I used to remember that she would take me out to the garden with her so she could do her garden upkeep. And she used to have me help her deadhead marigolds. And I still remember when you deadhead the marigolds, and she'd tell me to rub the seed head between my hands. And marigolds have, I don't even know how to describe it. Pungent and bitter and of course floral. But anyway, I just remember that smell so much. On the other side of my family, my dad's mom, the grandma on that side, at least as far as my memory is concerned, her effort in the garden was much more meager. And I remember she had like a tiny patch of flowers and radishes next to her back porch. And I remember she had planter boxes along her front porch, this kind of more of a small deck that we used to sit near when the weather was nice. Back home, my mother did her best to kind of landscape around the house when she was, she worked night shifts in the ER, and so she did what she could. Yeah, she did what she could for sure. And, somehow, despite being exhausted all the time, she kept it looking pretty good. Fragrant yellow roses grew next to the door that went in and out of the garage, so we could always see the flowers when we went out to the driveway to wait for the school bus. And, well, it was kind of an almost always kind of thing, I guess, because in the years when my mom had enough time to sort of take care of the roses, whatever that meant at the time, I don't know, fertilizing or making sure to trim them back at the right time and all that, they were full of white yellow flowers. Really kind of, what would you even say, almost like a pastel yellow bloom. And that said, though, I think the flowers where they, or the seasons where there was only one flower that bloomed, weren't exactly rare. My first gardening season was summer 2021, and my goal at the beginning was just to grow something. I think what I wanted most was jalapenos, given how difficult it was to find them in Japan, and still remains, at least in this more countryside part of the country, for me anyway. Maybe there's just a place I don't know about. My goals now are much more varied, but one of them is to grow things to keep people's memories alive, or to connect to friends and family at home in some small way. And well, I mean, the good thing is, talking about my mother's garden, the grandma on that side, is, as I said, like, marigolds are the really big thing for me. And when I think about her garden, it's almost like I can almost see other flowers and other colors like on the periphery in my mind's eye here, but like I go back to the marigolds. And so she's probably, that experiences, or those experiences are the reasons, or the reason why I think I'm always sure to grow marigolds. And it helps, that they're so easy. And one thing to love about marigolds, or to hate about marigolds, I guess, is that if you grow them once, you'll kind of have them free for life. If you deadhead them, you can save the seeds for yourself. But if you don't take care of them, then they'll drop seed and they'll just come back up the next season. So there will never be a time when the ubiquitous orange and orange red varieties aren't given a spot in my garden, whether because they just pop up because I didn't do a good enough job with maintenance, or because I've actually saved them, which I do a lot of the time. But every time, even now, like when I go out there and I'm deadheading them, I just did it the other day because we're having a really strangely warm winter. I was just completely brought back to my grandma's garden and memories of her. She passed away now about, what would it be, God, 4 or 5 years ago, I feel like. And yeah, so it's a good way to sort of refresh memory and kind of keep her with us here. On the more difficult side of things are roses, and they're much more fickle beasts, to say the least, than marigolds, for sure. I attempted them once during my first season growing, which would be two or three years ago now. And after putting out 3-ish flowers, I say ish because I think one of them bloomed half rotten, if I remember correctly, the plant just sort of called it quits. Maybe it didn't help, but that it was a particularly hot summer that year. But I thought, okay, I guess roses and my veranda garden aren't really a mix. That's too bad. So what are you gonna do, kind of thing. And I gave up on them. And during the second year, I didn't bother to get a new plant or anything like that. But last January, I got to thinking about them again. I think because I had gone to the States in Christmas of 2022 to visit my family. And when I came back to Japan, I was still like, oh man, it was so great seeing my mom and seeing my family. And I think when I came back, I had like it's going through a fresh bout of separation anxiety. Especially for my mom, I guess I just really wanted something to help me feel close to her. So I thought, okay, well, let's see if we can't do a bit better job here. So I dove into the research, and wouldn't you know it, I just did some stupid things, and those turned out to be the problems. Particularly that the first time around, I kept the rose in what was probably maybe a 3-gallon planter, which was probably the biggest issue because I guess roses want some space to sort of stretch out the root system and all that jazz. And I think I also did very little to kind of keep them fed. I didn't really understand that roses tend to be extremely heavy feeders. I think at that point I was just sort of leaving everything up to sort of store-bought soil mix. I thought, what the hell, whatever's in the soil will be enough, kind of thing. But these days I have a mini compost system in play, and I've begun using some liquid organic fertilizers, things like what is that even called? I'm drawing a blank, but things like liquid that are made from like kelp or like fish bones and that kind of thing. But armed with a knowledge of the size of planters that are required and also how much they want to eat, this year I went to a local Fukui nursery and chose a highly fragrant yellow climbing rose, the variety of which escapes me at the moment. It was called like Limelight Yellow or something like that. It was kind of a climbing variety. And the good news is it's a super, super successful year. It kind of seemed like there were always flowers on it for the season. It was supposed to be in bloom. And I guess it helps that we upgraded from a 3-gallon planter to a 15-gallon planter bag. And yeah, it shot up this sort of cherry colored trellis that's on the south side of the veranda. And yeah, it climbed up really nicely there. Well, climbed up as much as they actually climb. And it's nice because it's just so beautiful. It adds so much to the veranda, adds a really lovely kind of potpourri to the veranda itself. And then, it's really, really great because I remember when I was a kid, I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. It's a shame that there's only one flower on it, or only blooms every other year, or whatever the case may be, just depending on what my mom had going on. And so the plant that we have on the veranda now is probably let's say 2 or 3 times the size of when anything I saw as a kid. But I just remember, even when if it was only like one bloom or something that came out next to the garage, I remember my mom was just so pumped about it and how much she loved it. And then recently when I told her, I guess when they were in bloom this past year, the ones that I was growing, when I was explaining to her why I was growing them and how successful they were, she really lit up. So that was really, it made it worthwhile, for sure. So that's where I'm going to end today's episode. Next week we'll be talking about the second part of this topic. Today we focused mostly on kind of flowers and stuff like that, things that my mother's mom grew and my mom grew. And next week will be the kind of second part of it, as I said, and we're going to be talking more about kind of the edible stuff that I grow to connect to home and connect to the people at home. So I hope you will check that out. In the meantime, let me know what you grow in your own gardens to remind you of someone special or to help you think of home. It can be anything. It can be just it can be a flower. It can be an herb. I know a lot of people, myself included, when I was in university, I kept herbs in my dorm room because my grandma had suggested that I do it, and she had always done it. So I thought, what the hell? Or if it's something more complex, like a certain variety of tomato or whatever the case may be. So on that note, The Distracted Gardener will be back next Monday. Please be sure to, if you're using either Apple Podcasts or you're using Spotify, please give the show a follow or a subscription, whatever the correct terminology is. It'll really kind of help out, I guess, to sort of spread this around a bit more. And it also makes sure that you don't miss anything. So thanks as always for listening to the podcast, and we'll be back next week.